Okay, welcome everybody. This is the USAS budgeting meeting. I'm Carol Van Sickle. I do fiscal support primarily out of our Athens office. And we're going to go through all of the different budgeting options within the USAS program. So you should see on the screen that I am in the SSDT documentation, and I went to their budgeting document. Okay, so this is the best place to start. So I know for a lot of you, this is going to be a review or refresher. You know, it's been a year since you've done this. And for anybody that's new, hopefully this will give you some ideas on how best to do your budgeting within the system. So when you look at this document, there's not a whole lot on this particular page here. It's very short. Okay, but that's because it will link you to two other different areas of the documentation, which is what we're going to be working in today. So the first one is scenarios. So scenarios is the area where you load and create worksheets with your budget information. So we'll be working in that quite a bit today. So you'll see the different ways you can build your scenarios. The next link will take you to the proposed amounts documentation, and that is where the data ends up going. So when you put your spreadsheets and scenarios, you're going to do what we call a promote, and that will move all of that information into the proposed amounts area. And then that is when you can then apply that information to your actual accounts for the next fiscal year. Okay, so I may go into these a little bit, but especially if you're new or if you just want a refresher, it's really helpful to go through those documents to kind of look through everything. Okay, and then this is probably one of the most important things to look at in this blue box toward the bottom. These are the budgeting scenario steps. So these are actual checklists that take you step by step through the process. And you'll notice there's two links here. The first one is for the proposed amounts for the next fiscal year. And then you can also use this budgeting area to do budget adjustments in the current fiscal year. I like to start with concentrating on proposed amounts for next fiscal year. So I'm going to go through that first. And then at the end, we'll talk about making adjustments for the current year. But of course, you want to make sure all of your budget adjustments are done for the year, for this current year, before you start doing your proposed amounts for next year, especially if you're going to be using those expendable amounts for any of your calculations for the next year. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and click on the link for the proposed amounts for the next fiscal year. Okay, and then you see there are links here, so if you want to go to something specific, you can just click the link here. Otherwise, if you just start scrolling down, it will again mention the other documentation and the two different areas that you're going to be working in, which is scenarios and proposed amounts. And it gives you links to those documents as well right here. Okay, and then you'll notice right here it tells you how you can get started. Okay, and depending on how you want to do it, you know, you may be skipping this and going to another area. There's a couple of different ways you can enter that information, like I said. So I'm just going to go into a demo account that I'm using, and we're just going to go ahead and start looking at it all. If you have any questions at all during the meeting, feel free to unmute, type something in chat to ask a question as well if you want. I do have my chat box open, so I'll try my best to answer those as I see them come in. Okay, and that AI thing keeps popping up. I thought I told it to stop, so I don't know what's going on with that. So I guess that's just going to be an annoyance for the day till I can figure out how to get rid of that. Okay, so let me go to my demo account that we're going to be using today, and I'm going to log in. And I'm going to log in as a user that has group manager privileges, and that is typically what treasurers have. You have group manager privilege to USAS. Okay. So I'm going to go right to the budgeting section here. Oops, sorry. If I can figure out where my cursor is. Budgeting, scenario. So you always want to start with the scenarios area. And when you go in that area, you may see some data already in there from prior years. If you have things that are old in there, you can delete them. There's really not any reason to keep them any longer. So you can clean this up if you want. And then, like, we can filter this for last year to see what we had in there for 2026. Well, for this year, right? The current year. So if I filter in the fiscal year field, you can see I did have some adjustments that I did in here. This was something that was added for new object codes that were being used per AOS. Was something that we played with on cloning. And then this is what we used for this fiscal year for the next year proposed for this year. Okay, so like I said, there's a couple of different ways that you can build your scenarios. It's really personal preference, whichever way you're most comfortable with. So the first way I want to show you on what you can do is you can just create external spreadsheets and use those to build your budget figures. So I'm going to show you a couple of different worksheets that you can use for this. If you go to Report and Report Manager, and then in the report name, I'm just going to do %, which is a wildcard, and then Worksheet, and I'm going to enclose it with a %. Okay, so the way I type that in the report name, I'm telling it to search for any report name that has the word worksheet in it. So you can see I get quite a few hits. Now we do have the same report name that was loaded multiple times by different people. But the first reports I wanted to show you are the ones at the bottom from the SSDT. So you'll notice they have an appropriation, a budget, and a revenue expense worksheet. I'm going to focus on just budget and revenue. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the generate and download for budget expense. Okay. And you'll notice whenever you generate a report, the save and recall will usually always say most recent because it will show you the most recent options that were selected when it was generated. So you can see I had a specific name in there of a report that I generated, so I gave it a unique name. And then if I click on the Query Options tab, this is where you can put in specific parameters, certain filters, so that you're only pulling in specific information. So in this case, I did include OPU 102. Okay, so I only wanted my OPUs for 102. Okay. And this SST budget expense worksheet, for those of you that were familiar with the classic software system, this report is similar to the report that a lot of districts used in the classic system. So some of you may still already be using this report still, as well as the revenue expense worksheet. Okay. Now, typically when you come into a report to create a new one, we do recommend that you click the drop-down box in Save and Recall and go ahead and set it to default. And that way it will go back to default settings. And you'll notice when I do that, the format is now PDF. Okay, so if you just want a PDF report, you can go ahead and generate that. If I go to Query Options, it cleared everything I had in there. Okay, so that's the best way to start if you're doing a brand new report. And we'll talk about adding a save recall option later. And also the name defaulted back to what the default name is. Okay, so, but you can change all of this. So again, I wanted mine in Excel, so I changed the format to Excel data. I did change the name of the report here to give it a unique name. That way, when it was generated, I knew exactly what it was for. And then in the query options, I did tell it I only wanted OPU 102. Okay, so you have a lot of options here that you can use to get what you want on that spreadsheet. I already generated this to save time, and I actually already did some changes on the spreadsheet. Let me see if I can find that. And of course, it's hiding on me with everything else I have open. Okay, bear with me just a minute. Let me see if I can think I have to minimize a bunch of stuff to see it. Okay, sorry everybody. It can be a little challenging when I got a ton of windows open. Okay, I'm just going to drag it over here so I can see it better. Okay, so these are some spreadsheets that I've already done, and this is the one that I generated that I'm showing you right now with that budget expense worksheet from the SSTT. So if I open that up, and hopefully you can still see my screen. Okay, so this is what that spreadsheet looks like. Let me actually pull that over here. Okay, it's got a lot of data in it. Um, so if you look at it, I have a column for just Fund Special Cost Center. I have appropriation account, the specific budget account, description. We have fiscal year to date appropriated. So you can see we have a ton of different fields that are already in here. And then as we go to the right, you'll notice there's a lot of different breakdowns for the different dimensions of the account code. Okay, so that's kind of nice to work with, though, especially if you're not doing any specific filter, or maybe you still have a ton of accounts that are pulling in, and maybe you want to filter it down more. Some of those fields could help you do that. Okay, so if you wanted to focus on one specific fund special cost center, you could filter on that field. So if I turn on my filters here, I could go over and let's say I only wanted to focus on just my 500s. So I could go to the one digit object level and select only the 500s, and then I can focus on those. So it's kind of nice for that reason. Um, but I had already gone through and I limited this particular spreadsheet to just my 400 and 500 objects for my 102 OPU. So I had all that filled in already, or filtered out already, and then I saved it. Okay. Now, what you might want to do, because there's so much information in this spreadsheet, you may want to copy and paste this into a different spreadsheet, or create a new version of this and maybe get rid of some of these additional columns that really aren't needed. And I'll explain that more with the next worksheet I'm going to show you. But if you're going to use this for your budgeting, what you want to do, I'm going to turn off the filters just so we don't see that. Okay. So what you'll want to do is you'll notice it has a next year proposed column. So this is a good report if you want to verify your next year proposed figures, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, but for our purposes, for doing the budgeting, you can either add another column or you can just go ahead and use this one, and you're going to rename it PA-2027. Okay, that's exactly how you have to type it in. So it has to be capital P, capital A dash 2027. Okay, make sure you're putting in the year that you're budgeting for. Okay, so that along with the specific account code dimensions is all that's required to load into the scenario to do your budgeting. And again, I'll show you the other spreadsheet because that shows you exactly what's needed. Okay, so then you're going to want to fill in your figures. So I'm just going to plug in numbers. There's only, what, eight accounts that I have in here. So I'm just going to make up some numbers to put in here just so we have data to work with. 125, let's put something with decimals. 77525. Okay, let's do another 1,000. 500, 500. Okay, just get something in there. Okay, so then you just want to save your spreadsheet. Okay, I'm going to leave this as is. I mean, you don't have to really change anything other than, make sure you have that column with your figures filled in. If you have accounts in here that you're not budgeting for, I would highly recommend deleting those out. There's no reason to to go ahead and have those go through the load process when you don't need them. Okay, that could save some processing time if you get rid of that type of stuff. And again, the only thing I don't like about this spreadsheet is there are a lot of columns that really aren't needed for the load. So you might want to either copy and paste the information to another spreadsheet or start getting rid of some columns. Okay, just something to keep in mind. Okay, but this is just one example of one of the worksheets you can use to do your budgeting. Okay, so that's that example. I have that saved. Okay, now I'm going to minimize this. Okay, now I'm going to go back to Report Manager. Oh, yeah, I'm still there. Okay, so the other worksheets I wanted to talk about are these budgets and revenues worksheets. Okay, if you don't already have those, oh, okay, I do see a question. It seems to pull inactive accounts. Is there a way to prevent that? Okay, that's a good question. So if I look at this SSDT budget, actually, you could probably modify it. So if you're not familiar with creating your own custom reports, this is what we could do. So I'll show you how to do that. So if I go to this SSDT budget expense worksheet and I click the view symbol, the eye symbol, okay, that will actually open up the custom report creator. Okay, and you can see all the details of how this report was created. If I click on configure filters, okay, that's where you tell it, you know, what specific account dimensions you want. And then if you scroll down, you can put in an account filter. If you use account filters in USAS, you can do the as of period. Okay, so um, that's a good point. It's going to pull in inactive accounts. So since there's nothing in here to tell it, I only want active accounts to pull in, what you could do is over on the left under properties, you'll see right at the top, the second option here is active. Okay, so that tells you is the account active or not, so true or false. Okay, so I'm going to double click it, or you can drag and drop it over. Okay, when I double clicked it, it's down here at the bottom. And then now I can tell it I want active to equal true. And you can just do a lowercase t, you could do capital T, I believe. You could type in true. Any of those should work. So if you do that, what you'll want to do then is you're now changing this report, you're customizing it. So whenever you do that, I highly recommend you change the name of the report and call it whatever you want. So I'm just going to put my name in. I'm just going to say Carol's Budget Expense Worksheet. Okay. And then save it. And then, okay, it told me it's saved. I'm going to click the Report Manager tab here or button here. I'm going to go ahead and filter for Worksheet again. Okay. And now I have my version here of the SSDT's Budget Expense Worksheet, except this one will only pull active accounts. Okay, so that's an easy way to do it so that you can get just active accounts using that report. So you'll just use the one you created instead of the SSDTs. Okay, great question. Okay, but now I want to talk about these. You bet, you're very welcome. So budgets and revenues worksheet. Okay, so I will show you where we got that report. So let me show you that. So if you don't have these available already, Um, the way you can get those is you'll have to go to the SSDT's budgeting information. And I think I wrote down exactly where they're at. Oh, I know. It's actually on this checklist. So remember, I went to this budgeting scenario steps for proposed amounts for next fiscal year. Okay. I think right here. Okay, so if I just scroll back up to the top here where we have all these different links, if I click on the upload budgeting spreadsheets into the scenario, okay, that's where it talks about how you can upload a spreadsheet. And right here are the links to the budgets spreadsheet and the revenue spreadsheet. So all you have to do is click on each one of these, and as soon as you click it, it should automatically download. Mine automatically downloads to a specific folder that I set. Yours may prompt you on where you want to save it. It just depends on how you have it set up in your browser. And let's do the same thing for the budget spreadsheet. Okay. And then once you've downloaded them, all you have to do is go back to your report manager, click on this import report button. Okay, and then it's going to open this dialog box where you can locate those download files. So they're here, right here. Okay, so just click one of them, click open, and then you're going to get this box and you can see the report name, budgets worksheet, description. You can change the name, change the description. You can add tags if you want, and then just click save. And then it will save it on the grid with your name. So it'll say created by, and it'll have your name on it, like it did here when I customized this one. I'm logged in as meta test for my username, so it was created by meta test. Okay, so once you have those imported into here, then you can go ahead and generate it. Okay, and again, this is on most recent. So the last time I ran this, um, the format actually is defaulted to Excel data, I believe. I'll show you that in a minute. But the name, I actually called it Transportation Budgets Worksheet. And in the query options, I used the function code of 28 with the percent sign as a wildcard. So any function that starts with 28 is what it pulled in. Okay, if I go back to report options, and if I go to save and recall here, and if I do default, okay, again, that kind of clears everything out. So the default settings are in place. So the default setting for the format is Excel data, so it's already set to that. The default name is budgets worksheet. And if I go to the query options, there's nothing in here currently. Okay, so you would just fill in based on what you want. Okay, so now I wanted to show you the save recall. So when I did that transportation worksheet, I saved it. So the way you do that is after you've set everything the way you want it for your report options and your query options, you would just go up to this drop-down box, click the blank area here, and then give it a name. Got to spell it right. Helps if you do. Transportation test. Okay, just for something new. And then either click or tab out of that box, and you'll see this blue save icon. So you just click that, and then it will save it in the list. Okay, I'm not going to save this one because I already did that one from earlier. So if I click in here, you'll see I have this transportation one that I created earlier. So if I click that, now you can see it has that name that I gave it, that specific name. And if I go to query options, that's what I selected for my query. So I have the 28% back in there. So if you haven't used that before, that's how you can save these so that if you want to use these same settings again later, they're right in there and you don't have to type all that information in. Okay. Really helpful, especially if you're doing a lot of different dimensions. Maybe you're really drilling down to something specific. And then the filter name, keep in mind if you use account filters, you can type in the filter name. It does have to be exact. So however you named that account filter, you have to put that in exactly the same way for it to recognize it. Okay? Any questions about that? Not seeing anything. And for those of you that might not be familiar, if you go to Utilities Account Filters, this is where you can build specific account filters. Ours look kind of weird for some of the names because this is anonymized data. But here's one that's called Athletics. So if I view it, you can see that we have this set for a budget account, Fund 300, with Special Cost Center 9%. Okay. And then if you edit this, you can actually see these different access levels. If you hover over them, it tells you what they mean. This allows somebody to create uh, that budget account. This is read, meaning whoever has access to this filter, you could actually assign it to somebody if you want to restrict them to what they can see. Okay, so there's all different options here. If you've never used it before and you're interested, contact our team. Best way to do that is send an email to redesignhelp@metasolutions.net. But you can definitely, set up specific accounts using these account filters and use them in different reports, and it makes it a lot easier to create your reports that way. Okay, let's see. Okay, so now I wanted to show you that budgets worksheet that I created. So I'm going to go back to my folder here. So here's my transportation budgets worksheet that I already generated. So these are my 2.8 function codes. Okay. So on this one, you'll notice it doesn't quite have quite as many columns as that other one did, the SSDT version. Okay, so here's all of my account code dimensions. So that's what's required um, for the scenarios. And this one automatically creates a column for you that starts with PA dash. Okay, so apparently I had my filters on, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay, so you want to make sure you fill that in with the correct year. So make sure it's 2027. And then this is the column then you're going to populate with the amounts that you want for your initial budget figure. And again, if you have any accounts you're not going to budget on, we highly recommend you just delete those out of the spreadsheet. Okay. So what I'm going to do, just so I have some figures to work with, I'm just going to do a simple calculation. I'm going to calculate on my expendable amount. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick equal on the expendable, so that's cell L2 for this line. And I'm going to increase it 2%. Here I am, 0.02. Okay. And then I'm just going to copy that down. I'm just going to do the same thing, just so I have something that we can look at later. Okay. So these are the only ones that I have in here. So when I created the spreadsheet, you notice I had my filter on. That's because I did filter for, I only wanted stuff that already had an expendable for this fiscal year. So that's why I have something in that column for every account that's in here. Okay. But I'm keeping this small just so everything goes a little quicker as we're going through this training. Okay. Again, all the other columns you can delete if you want, because the only fields you need in this scenario are the individual account code dimensions and then that PA 2027. Okay. You don't have to delete them. You can if you want. But remember, if you're doing a calculation, you'll want to save this as values. Otherwise, if you delete the column that you were calculating on, you're going to break those figures. Okay. I just noticed the formatting on that. I am going to format this to number because I got extra decimals in there. Okay, that looks a little better. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, and I did run the revenue worksheet as well, so I'm just going to show you that here. And again, I'm doing transportation. So I was looking for receipt code that starts with 13. That's how I built this. So again, I'm just going to go to the column that has PA in it, enter 2027. Okay, and then maybe this time I'm just going to use the same receivable as last year. So I can either just type them in or do a formula, dealer's choice. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, so and I have my spreadsheets. Okay, and you can have multiple spreadsheets, so however your district does this. So maybe you create a spreadsheet, maybe you send it to somebody else, department head, and they fill in their budget figures, send it back to you, and then you can load it into the scenario. Maybe you only have two spreadsheets. You have one for all of your budgets, one for all of your revenue for the year. Um, it really doesn't matter. It just depends on what makes the most sense for you for your district. Okay, so once you have your spreadsheet, so these are the only three I'm going to work in for uh, today's demonstration of how to do this. Okay, let me take a look at my sheet here to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Okay. Okay, yep. So now that I have my spreadsheets, and you can start, doing your spreadsheets now if you're ready to go ahead and budget some things. There are other things that you might not be able to do till closer to the end of the year. I remember last year somebody brought up, I have grant accounts that I'm going to have some money that's going to carry over to the next year. I'm not going to know that exact amount until the end of June. So, you're not going to be able to budget those until you're in June. So you can just keep building in the scenario until you're ready to actually apply it to be your next year's initial figures. So whether you start doing some of that now or maybe you're not going to start it for another month or so. It really doesn't matter. Okay. Like I said, it just, you do what makes sense for your district and what you have to budget for. Okay. So I went back to budgeting scenarios and now I'm going to create. So I'm going to create a new scenario for FY27. So you want to give it a name. So, dealer's choice, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to call it FY27 next year proposed. You can enter a description if you want. Fiscal year, make sure you have the correct year in here. So mine does say 2027, so that's perfect. Okay, since I am uploading spreadsheets that I've created, I'm just going to click the upload button down here at the bottom. I need to give it a name. So you want to keep the sheet name unique for every spreadsheet that you're loading in here. Okay, so I'm going to start with my FY27 transportation expenditures. Okay. Again, you can give it a description if you want. Then I'm going to click the choose file. Okay, and I have these on my desktop in a folder. Okay, so I'm going to grab my transportation budget worksheet, open that. You'll see it put the file right here, and then I'm going to click Start Upload. Okay, depending on how large your spreadsheet is, it may take a while before you see this message. I'm going to close that message, and then you'll see it's listed right in here. And I'm going to click this plus symbol in the upper right corner just to make this larger so you can see it better. Okay, so that's the name I gave it, and then that's the actual spreadsheet name that I loaded. Okay, so I'm going to do it again for the other two. So now I'm going to upload. I'm going to give it a unique name. So we're going to do FY27 transportation revenue. And I see a question that came in. I'll get to you in just a minute. Okay, you have to tab out of that sheet name before anything else is available. I'm going to go down and choose File. I'm going to grab my transportation revenue worksheet. I'm going to click Start Upload. Close that message, and there's my revenue worksheet. Okay, and let me grab the question now. Okay, in the past I have created separate spreadsheets for each fund. I would like to use just one spreadsheet separated by tabs. Will the system recognize separate tabs? Great question. Unfortunately, no, it will not. So you will either have to combine all of those onto one worksheet and load that. You can have a spreadsheet with multiple tabs, but when you do this load, you'll have to load each tab separately. Okay, so great question. It will only do one tab. So it's kind of like when you save a spreadsheet in comma delimited format, it will only let you save the spreadsheet or the worksheet that you're currently on. So this is kind of the same thing. You can only do one specific worksheet from a spreadsheet file. Okay, let me load my last one here. So I'm going to do another upload. Okay, follow-up question. Can the spreadsheet have blank lines between funds? I don't know. So let's try it. I'm guessing probably so. But let's find out for sure. Okay, that's the nice thing about these trainings and using demo accounts. We can try whatever we want. Okay, so this one I haven't loaded yet. This is the one I was getting ready to grab. So let's try it and see what happens. Okay, so if I understand you correctly, your spreadsheet probably looks something like this then, where you've got it separated out with blank rows. I know I don't have to do all of them. Okay, that's good enough, right? Okay, so let's just see. I have no idea. All right. So I've saved that. Let's give it a try. Okay, so I'm going to click upload. Oh, sorry. Keep losing my cursor. Okay, so this one I'm going to call FY27 Budgets OPU 102. Okay, I'm going to choose that file. Okay, that's the one. Okay, I'm going to click Start Upload. Okay, well, it didn't complain about that. So as far as uploading it, it's fine. We'll see what happens when we actually promote it and see if it has any issue with that. But so far, so good. Okay. So next thing you want to do, make sure you click Save. Okay. That's a really important button when you're working in scenarios, no matter how you're doing your worksheets. Make sure you save frequently. Okay. If you accidentally click the X, anything that you were doing, you're going to lose. Okay. So that save button is very important. Okay. But I'm going to come up here and close this. Okay. So now, because I have so many years in here, I'm just going to type in 2027 here. Okay. So there's my scenario that I created with those external spreadsheets. Okay. And like I said, build your scenario, keep adding to it. Or, maybe you only have a couple of worksheets that you use. Maybe you only have one expenditure and one revenue. Um, you know, you can start putting it in and you can keep uh, uploading it again. So, like if you're not completely done, you can always reload it. So, let me show you that. So, I'm just viewing this right now. And you'll notice you can download. So, if for some reason you can't find your spreadsheet that you loaded in here, you can always download these from here, and then you'll have them again that way. But if I go into edit mode, okay, you'll notice I have some other options here. So this first one here is where I can actually edit. So you could edit it in here. I don't really recommend that, but you could. Okay. Um, we'll use that more for the other way you can do worksheets, which is what we call internal worksheets. This button is not available. This is only available when you do internal spreadsheets, which is what I'm going to show you next. This option is an upload and replace. So, I've already loaded these, but okay, let's say we do end up having a problem with this one with those blank rows in it. Um, if it does cause an issue, what I could do is come back into this scenario. Um, I'll take my original spreadsheet that I have. If those spaces or if those blank lines are a problem, I'll want to remove them, resave it, and then I can come back here to the scenario and use this upload and replace button. And then I'll just select that updated spreadsheet file and load it in here. So that'll replace the one that's in there currently. And then if you decide, you know what, I want to get rid of this altogether, you can click the X here and delete it. So that's the delete button. Okay. You can upload more down here. Create, we'll talk about later. And then again, just make sure you save it. Okay. Okay. Before we go on any further, I want to show you the other option that you have. Okay. Um, so a couple of things. So you can create what we call an internal worksheet or spreadsheet in a scenario. And I kind of want to show you that from this one, this FY26 cloned. So let me just kind of filter that just for 2026 to get rid of some of the noise. Okay, so this is what we played with last year. Okay, we create this clone scenario. So if I view it, okay, you can see I only have a couple of things in here. All right, if I edit it, okay, you'll notice that this symbol with the double arrow, if I hover over it, it says regenerate spreadsheet. That button is only available if you created it internally, which is what we did here. So the advantage of doing that is, if you create internal spreadsheets in a scenario, you can clone that scenario from the previous year, and then you can use regenerate to refresh each of these spreadsheets. and then it saves you some time. The downside is it takes you some time to build, and it might seem a little complicated, when I show you how to create it. Okay. It's not bad. It's just something you would have to get used to, but it does take time to build them. But once they're in there, like I said, you can clone it. The next year, you're going to do your budgeting, and then all you have to do is refresh them all, and then you can, you know, get all the amounts set for the new year. Okay. So if you have done this in the past and, you know, you're one of those districts that said, yeah, that works great for me. That's how I like to do mine. What you can do is I'm going to cancel out of edit mode. So when you go in and you view the spreadsheet or the scenario, I'm sorry, when you view it, there is a clone button. So if I click clone, okay, I am going to do, okay, sorry, got a little distracted. All right, so I'm going to call this one FY27, and I'm going to call it clone scenario just so we know in our demo account what we were doing with this. Okay, again, the fiscal year entered is very important. Make sure you have the correct year. And all you do is save it. So you can see everything that was in that original one. It's going to get saved. Okay, now I'm going to close it because I just want to close out of that window because this window is still open as well. So I want to close both of them. Okay, I'm going to change my year to 2027. Now, if I can get my button to work. There we go. Okay, so now I have this FY27 clone scenario. Okay, and if I go to view it, okay, there's those spreadsheets that I used last year, and now they're in this year's scenario. Okay, so then when I go into edit mode, I have the regenerate option. Okay, so what you would do if you use this method is you would go ahead and regenerate each worksheet. Okay, so I'm going to click regenerate here, and then this is what you're going to see. So this shows you how that worksheet was built. Okay, so these are all of the fields that are in the sheet. Um, and you can change it. So if there's some other field you want added, if you want to get rid of a field you don't want, you can do that. And then there's another tab here called Configure Filters. Okay, so if I click on that, then I can see how it was filtered. So for this particular sheet, it's looking for object code that equals 511, and then it uses the active status with equals T for true. Okay, so if you're doing the clone from the previous year, you'll want to make sure all of this information is still accurate. Okay, if it is, then what you'll want to do is click on Save Sheet. And what it's going to do is going to go and look in your current files for that information. So it's going to look for those object codes 511 that are active. And it's going to pull all that data into the sheet, and everything will have the current information in it. So when I click that, you're going to get this message that pops up. You're just confirming that you're creating this sheet. Okay. It tells you this is going to run in the background, might take several minutes. You can continue working in another browser tab until this process completes. And then to confirm you do want to create it, you just click this create button, and then it's going to start spinning. And again, depending on your district, it might take quite a while to run. Okay. So you should get this message though when it completes. So I'm just going to close that. And now that particular worksheet is refreshed with the current year data. Okay, so if I edit that particular sheet, okay, this should have updated with prior year expendable, the current year's fiscal year to date expendable, the current year's fiscal year to date expended, and then this also has 2-year, 3-year expended on there. But you'll notice it already has the PA-2027 label. Okay, so then it's just a matter of updating the information in here. And you can either do it in here, or you can download the spreadsheet, work with it in Excel, and then put it back into the scenario. Okay, so I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit here. Okay, so you want to keep updating the worksheets. Okay, so you would want to regenerate this one. Before I do, I just want to look at it. I don't know if we put figures in here. We did not. Okay, all right, I thought we did. Okay, but you'll want to regenerate this one too. I thought maybe I could show you something, but that didn't work. Okay, so I'm just going to regenerate it just to make sure. So again, you're just making sure those are the correct columns you want. Configure filters. Make sure all of these settings, you don't want to change anything. Okay, in this case, I'm looking for fiscal year to date expendable that's greater than 0. Okay, do you still want that criteria in there for this sheet you're creating? If so, just click Save Sheet, go ahead and create, and that way you can make sure it has, it updates everything correctly based on your current account information. Okay, and then again, remember to keep saving. So every time you do something, save as often as you can, just so you don't miss anything. Okay, so let's see what I'm forgetting. Okay, so we talked about regenerate. Okay, I showed you the PA2027. Okay, so now that you've regenerated all the spreadsheets, they should have, the correct information in there. And you go back in and edit. Like I mentioned, you can do it one of two ways. You can just click the edit button for the worksheet, and you can work with it in here. So you could just go to this column. You can start entering your figures. Again, you can delete rows. If you're not going to budget anything for that row, you might want to do that. Um, you can do simple formulas in here. So if I wanted to do, again, equal, I think my expendable is column M, expand that out to make sure. Yeah. So if I do M3 times 1.02, increase it 2%, you can do simple formulas like that. Okay. I don't know why it goes out that many digits. Okay. I don't think that hurts anything. I'm going to just put it back to 0. Okay. But the easier way to work with it would be to download it. So you can click the download button here, and then you can open that in Excel, and then you can, do everything in Excel with it. I'm going to go ahead and download this one and show it to you. Okay, let me open that up. Okay, so when I open this spreadsheet, I can now use it in Excel. So you can do filtering, you can do formulas, whatever. Just make sure you get that PA2027 column populated. Okay. Now, when you download from a worksheet that you created internally in the scenario, you will notice you have this ID column. Please do not change that column. Okay, don't delete it. Don't change anything on it. If you're going to give this spreadsheet to somebody else, you might want to lock that column or maybe just hide it. But you do not want to change it. This is very important when you're doing internal spreadsheets. Okay, keep that the same. So what you will do though is go ahead and, fill in your figures. No, I guess I don't have my decimals on, but that's all right. Okay, let's just say they're all going to be 500. Okay, just to save some time here. I had my auto save on, so that's already saved. I'm going to go ahead and close that spreadsheet. So then what you'll want to do is in the scenario, you'll go back to the scenario, and what you're going to do is you're going to select this upload and replace. Okay, so this middle icon here is upload and replace. Make sure you put it exactly back where you got it from. So I'm going to click that. It's going to tell you you're going to overwrite that existing sheet. Yes, that's okay. Okay, so I'm not going to change the sheet name. I'm going to leave it the same, but I am going to grab that file that now has my budget figures in it. Oops, except I got to remember where it went. Probably went over here. Yep. So I'm going to open that, upload. Okay, and then you just have to wait for the green message. Okay, now if I view that one, I'm going to see those figures in there. So you can see here on my PA2027 column, they're all $500. Okay. Okay, so just keep that in mind if you're doing internal spreadsheets and you download it to work in Excel, make sure you upload it and replace on the same line. Do not use this button down here. This button at the bottom is always used for external spreadsheets that you're adding into the scenario. So you could do a combo. Maybe you're using some external spreadsheets, maybe you're creating some internally. That's perfectly fine. You can do that as well if you want. Okay. Like I said, use this the way that makes the most sense to you. Okay. Again, make sure you save. Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about doing the spreadsheets internal. Okay. Keep in mind whenever you use that regenerate option. Okay. So remember, I have those figures in there now currently. I have the $500. But if I go to regenerate it, so let's say, I realize I had some new accounts I had to add in that I'm going to use for next year. They weren't in when I generated the spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my new accounts. So you have those loaded under core accounts. And I want to regenerate the spreadsheet so I can get those account codes pulled into the spreadsheet. So you could come back in here and regenerate it. Okay, just click Save again. Click Create. Okay, and that's all fine and good. But now if you view it, okay, it wipes out your PA2027 figures. Okay, that's because you refreshed it. But it should pull in any new accounts that you've created. So you should see those new accounts in here using that example. Okay, but again, you can just download it, work with it in Excel again, get your figures updated, come back in here, upload and replace. Okay, so just for the heck of it, I'm going to put those back in. I'm going to put that spreadsheet where I put those figures in and upload it back in. Okay, and so if I edit it again, there we go. There's my figures. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. This option can be a little bit confusing until you get used to it, but hopefully those tips will help you if you do use it. Okay, but like I said, some people do like this. Once they understand how this works, it can save you a lot of time depending on how you do things. Okay, so again, remember to click Save so you don't lose anything. Okay, so those are the two different ways you can do it. And again, you can combine them if you want. But again, use one scenario for all of your budgets. So I'm only going to use this one. This is the only one that I am going to actually use to actually set my initial figures. Okay. All right. So let's see where I'm at here on my list. Okay. I don't see any questions. Okay. So I think we're doing good. Oh, okay. I almost forgot. There is something else I wanted to show you. So this is something, so we had a meeting about this budgeting module with the SSDT a couple weeks ago, and they demonstrated doing the filter with special cost center in the 9,000 range. So I thought that it was just kind of interesting how they showed that. So I was just going to show that to you as well. So I'm going to go back to my clone scenario because I'm just doing internal worksheets in this one. So I'm just going to use this one to play with. Okay. So I'm going to create. Okay, and that's what I didn't show you yet, right? So far we've just looked at ones that we cloned from the previous year. But let's say I want to create a new scenario or a new worksheet in this scenario. So you would use this create button. So I'm in edit mode on the scenario. I'm going to click create on the bottom left here. So that's where it takes you to this sheet, okay, where we can start doing things. Now, when you're creating it, you have the option in the upper left corner of either budget or revenue. Okay, so depending on which one you want, select the appropriate one. I'm sticking with budget for this. Let's see. So for this example, I'm going to do, well, first of all, I want to verify my fields. Remember, ID, always keep that in there for these internal worksheets. But down here at the bottom, okay, I really don't want my encumbrance and fiscal year to date encumbered amounts on the spreadsheet. So I'm going to click the X to the right to get rid of those. Okay, and then let's say I want to add in my 2 year prior expended and 3 year prior expended. Okay, because right now I have the current fiscal year to date expended, I have prior year expended, but now I want to grab 2 and 3 year expended. So if I scroll all the way down on the left here, and I will have to grab my scroll bar over here too. Okay, there. Now I can see more on the left. Okay, so down here at the bottom is my 2 year and 3 year prior. So you can either double click. If you double click, they'll end up down here at the bottom, or you can drag and drop. And you can drag it wherever you want. So if you want it in a certain location, you can just drop it wherever. And you can always drag and drop it in a different spot if you want. Okay, let me grab the 3 year. Okay, so let's say these are, whoops, it didn't come over. I had that trouble yesterday. Thought it was just me, but maybe not. Okay, 3 year expended, except I want it down here. So again, you can put it whatever order you want. This is the order it will appear on the worksheet. There we go. So you can sort those however, or put those in whatever order you want. Okay, and then I'm going to use my configure filters. Okay, my active field is right here at the top, so I'm going to grab that. And I only want my active accounts, so I'm going to make sure that's T for true. Okay, and then under code here, so remember I'm in the budget area, right? So I want to just go right to code here. This will have all my account code dimensions listed in it. And in this case, I am going to do fund. So again, you can either double click it or drag and drop it to the right. I'm only going to do my 001 fund. Okay, but now let's say I want to grab all the 9,000 codes. Okay, so I can come over to the left here under code, grab my special cost center. Okay, and if I want to do all the 9,000s, there's a couple of ways you can do it. So one of the ways is I could do between. So I could tell it basically a range. So I could do 9,000, comma 9999. Okay, or I can do, I think like is one of them. I could do like and 9%, I believe. Okay, I think that'll work. Let's try it and make sure that does work and see what we get. Okay, and so let's say that's what I want. So I'm going to give it a name. Let's see, what do we want to call it? We'll do General Fund 9,000s. Okay, so I'm going to save it. I'm going to click Create, and then let's see what it looks like. Okay, and if you need help with those operation filters, there is documentation on how those work. So we can get that to you if you don't know where that's at, or I can try and look for it here in a little bit. If anybody recalls exactly where that's at, let me know. But I think it's in, well, I get confused on where it's located between the USAS and the USPS documentation, but I think we can find it here in a little bit. But if anybody on the team has that handy, maybe you can grab that link and put it in chat. Now this is taking well, it's taking a lot longer than I thought it would. Okay. But this is more typical of what you guys will probably see. You'll probably see that rotating for quite a while, probably even longer than this. Okay, so again, you can just open a new tab in your browser, log back into the system, do something else until it finishes. Okay, so here's that worksheet that I just created. So I'm going to edit so I can take a look at it. Okay. All right, so okay, that did not work. So my like, okay, so I had the wrong thing. Okay, so if you look at my special cost centers, okay, so I didn't use the right one. So I'm going to stick with the one I know that works. So I'm going to regenerate because that didn't do what I wanted it to. I'm going to go to configure filters. I know my between one worked. Okay. Okay, I get a little rusty on these myself, so I sometimes have to look at the documentation too to make sure I get the right thing. Okay, but I know this one works, so let's do that one. Okay, that explains why it took a little longer. It was pulling in all the special cost centers, it looks like. Okay, see that went a lot quicker. And now if I view it, you can see I have 9,000 special cost centers for Fund 001. Okay, now you'll notice on here that I do have special cost centers with an X at the end. Okay, so some of you may be using those for next year. Somebody said, would it work if you did 9%, percent, so it have four characters? My understanding of the wildcard is you really only need to use it once for anything after the value you enter, so I don't believe so. I would have to look to see what I missed there. And again, if somebody on the team knows, because I know some people on the team are a little better at remembering those filters than I am. Okay, but what I wanted to show you here is if you are using those special cost centers that have, I think is it XYZ, I think you could use on the end. If you're a district that's going to have those next year, let's say you want those on a separate spreadsheet. So this one I want all my regular 9,000s, but maybe I want a separate worksheet for the ones that have like those XYZ codes on them. What I can do then is I can go back and regenerate this one, and I'm going to exclude from this one the ones that have the X on it. Okay, and again, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. I'm just going to show you the way that I know works for sure. So on configure filter, I'm going to grab SCC again. So I'm going to go to code, SCC, okay, and I'm going to use not one of. Okay, so I'm grabbing the 9,000s, but I don't want, okay, if you have a bunch of them, this probably is not going to be the best way to do it. But I only have four. So I'm going to do it this way to tell it not to include those. Okay, so if I save it, create, this shouldn't take long. Yep. Okay, now if I edit, okay, now I only have my 9,000s, my regular 9,000s for the 001. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, but now what about the ones with the X on it? Okay, so if I want that in a separate spreadsheet, okay, I'm going to go ahead again. I'm not going to do it this time, but again, I'll probably want to update what columns or what fields I want on the worksheet. So you could do that down here. But I'm just going to go right to configure filter. Again, I only want my active accounts. So I'm going to make that equal to T. And again, I'm going to do fund. So I'm going to open up code, grab fund. Again, I'm sticking with the 001 fund. Okay, and then this time, for special cost center. Now on this one I I am using the like option, and I'm going to do percent %X. Okay, so let's see, that gives us what we need. Oops, I need to cancel that because I forgot to give it a name. Otherwise I'd just call it new sheet. Okay, so I want something a little more descriptive. Maybe something like that. Save, create. Okay, so if I view this one, that's the new SCCs, that should have my 91X, okay? So I just thought that was interesting. They gave that example, so I thought I'd just share that with you. So just other ways you can use that filter to get exactly what you want on your worksheet. Okay, any questions about any of that? Again, I want to save so I don't lose anything that I put in here. Do that often. Okay, all right. So now we're going on to the next step. So we're done with scenarios unless somebody has any questions. All right. Okay. So now when you have your scenario built, oh, and I guess I should backtrack just a little bit here. I think I might have missed that on my notes here. I am going to get rid of my filter for the year here so we can see everything. Okay, so you can have multiple scenarios built. Like I said, we recommend only one that you're going to that has everything that you're actually going to that you're actually going to budget for. Okay, that's preferred. You don't have to do that. So and I'll show you why in a minute here. Okay. But I did want to mention that a good example of maybe building a couple of different scenarios, one that you may use and one you may not. At the very bottom here is an example of scenarios you can build based on like if you have a levy on the ballot, whether it fails or passes. So you can build your scenario for how you're going to budget if it fails and then how you're going to budget if it passes. So you can have all that built in, and then once you know for certain, so if it does pass, then you could just delete the one that you built for the fails. And then this is the one that you're going to actually use to build your budgets. Okay. Same thing for maybe you have negotiations going on. So depending on how the negotiations go, maybe you're going to budget a certain way for one scenario, budget a different way for another. Okay. So you can go ahead and build those and have them ready. And then once you find out for sure, then you'll know which one you're going to use. Okay. Let's see. All right. So I think I'm about ready to promote. Okay. So the next step in doing your budgeting is once you have your scenario built and you're at the point where you're ready to go ahead and get that applied for the new fiscal year, okay, you can do that one of two ways. Most districts will usually go ahead and get those new year figures established before you even close the fiscal year for this year. Some districts wait until they're actually in the new fiscal year before they apply these. It doesn't matter. Whichever way you want to do it is fine. Okay. Um, so I will show you. Okay. I'm going to do it in this year. So you'll see my, I'm working in February 2026, like probably most of you are. Um, but I do want to show you. I'm going to go to core, posting periods. Okay. So you can see February 2026. You can see it is current. It's green. And you'll see over in my open column, it's true for open. So this is my only open month. And it is also my current month. Okay. Um, when you actually, so if you're going to establish your FY27 initial figures before closing this fiscal year, when you do that, when you actually apply them to 2027, it will automatically create July for you. So I'm going to show you that later. So I just wanted to point that out because it's not here currently, but it is going to show up when I apply it to 2027. Okay. Let's see. I've got to keep looking at my notes because I'm afraid I'll forget something. All right. Okay. So let's take a look at the next area we're going to be working in. So I'm going to go back to budgeting. So we have been in scenarios, right? Okay, so the next area we're going to look at is proposed amounts. Okay, so when you have a scenario ready, we're going to promote it. When we promote it, it's going to push all of that data and all of those spreadsheets contained in the scenario into this proposed budget area. Okay, or proposed amounts area. Okay, you'll notice there's already data in there. Okay, why is there data there already? If you look at this box here with the drop down arrow, when you click that arrow, you're going to see all of these different fiscal years. Okay. So if you see that in your files, you might want to start getting rid of those old years. There's really no reason for those to be in there still. And they can be in there from previous year, next year proposed that you applied, or they could be from budget adjustments that you did for that year. Okay. So if you want to get rid of them, you just click on the year. Okay, wait for the screen to refresh. Okay, so watch, make sure that blue bar finishes. Okay, and then you could just click this box in the upper left corner to start selecting everything, and then go ahead and click the delete button. Okay, it may take a while to delete depending on how many are in there. You probably have a bunch of them for, each fiscal year. Um, and after you do that once, if you still see accounts listed, you might have to repeat this. So depending on how many accounts there are, you might have to repeat this delete several times until you get rid of them all. Okay. And keep in mind too, you can see there's two tabs up here at the top. So you have budgets on the first tab, which is where we're at. And then you have proposed anticipated revenue. So you also have revenue figures over in this tab. And again, there's a drop down for the year. So the only thing in here right now is fiscal year 22. Again, you might want to go ahead and get rid of those. So again, same thing, click them all, delete. You might have to do that several times to get rid of them all. Okay. Now, it doesn't hurt if you have those other years in here. It won't hurt a thing. So if you don't have time to do this, no problem. Just leave them there. It's really not a big deal. Okay. But when I promote that scenario I created for fiscal year 2027, when I click this drop-down list, I will then see fiscal year 2027 in the list. Okay. Let's see. What else am I forgetting here? All right. Okay. Next thing I want to show you. Okay. When you promote a scenario for the next fiscal year, and that information comes into this proposed amounts grid, as soon as it's in here, it's going to populate the next year proposed field on the accounts. Okay, so that's what I want to show you. So let me bring up, let's do my transportation budget sheet. Okay, so for example, let me go to the left so we can see the account code. Okay, let's just do this first one here. So this first account code, 001 2824 439, all the other dimensions are zeros. My PA2, my 2027 amount that I'm going to budget for is $102. Okay, so I'm just going to write that down. Okay, so what I want to show you is, let me just minimize that and that. Okay, so I'm going to go to core accounts. I'm going to go to expenditure. Okay, I'm going to filter for that account. Okay, so I'm going to do 001 2824 439. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to view it. Okay, so what's going to happen, and I'm going to click the plus sign just to make this bigger so you can see it better. So when I promote a scenario for 2027 now, while I'm in FY26, as soon as that data goes into that proposed amounts area, when I come back in here, I'm going to see this next year proposed will have that amount of $102. Okay. So, and this is what confuses people a lot. Okay. Is, let me get out of here. So let me close this. Okay. So it's important to understand that because depending on how important those next year proposed amounts are, being on those accounts, will determine whether how important it is for you to have everything in one scenario, or if you could actually do a couple of different scenarios and promote them at different times. So hopefully I'll explain that so you understand that. Okay. So let me go back to scenarios. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and promote that one I created for 2027. Okay. So let's say I've gotten everything in the scenarios. I'm ready to go ahead and apply my budget for 2027. Okay, so again, you want to make sure you select the one that has the data in it that you're going to be using. And then this is when you click that up arrow symbol. If I hover over it, it says Promote Scenario. So what that does is it will push all of that data into that proposed amounts area under budgeting. So I'm going to click Promote, and then you're going to get this message. Now it's going to tell you it's going to replace existing proposed amounts, both expenditure and revenue, for the fiscal year related to the scenario. So what that means is if I already had FY 2027 information in the proposed amounts grid, when I promote this, it's going to replace it. So it's only going to have the 2027 accounts and amounts from the spreadsheets in the scenario I'm promoting. So it's just letting you know, just warning you, are you sure you want to replace if there's something in there? Okay, we know there's nothing in there for 2027, so we're good. I'm going to promote. Okay, so again, this may take a while to run as it loads everything into that area. Okay, but once it's done, then you're going to go to proposed amounts. Okay, and again, you'll want to click in the box here and make sure you select fiscal year 2027. And then as soon as you do, it should refresh, and then you'll see your data. So you'll have your accounts and your amount uh, for everything that was in that scenario. So again, if I look at that one transportation account we looked at earlier, 2824 439. Okay. If I look to the right, that's the $102 that I budgeted. Okay. So one of the things you might want to do once you promote and then you select the fiscal year 2027, you do have a report option right here in the grid. So you can generate a report of the data that's in that grid, and you can put it in, you can do PDF, and PDF will automatically give you a total, or you can do Excel if you want. And then you can just use that report to verify that everything does look correct, and maybe just, get a total to verify that. Okay, same thing for revenue. So my transportation information for 2027 is in here. Remember, I made everything just 5,000 just to keep it simple. So there it is. Okay. But now that these accounts and the amounts for 2027 are in the proposed amounts area, as long as they're in this grid, that next year proposed field on the accounts will be populated. So if I go back to core accounts, expenditure, let's look at that transportation account again. Okay, so again, that was 001 2824 439. Okay, now if I view it, and I'm going to make this bigger, and then if I scroll down, there's my next year proposed amount of $102. Okay, now if I go back to budgeting proposed amounts, okay, so again, just to bring the point home, if I find that in this grid, okay, oops, I forgot to select the fiscal year. Always, always important, select the correct fiscal year. Okay, so there it is. Okay, and you'll notice I have other options here. So I can view it. If I view it, it just shows it in this format. So it's a little bit easier to see the information for it. You can edit it. Okay, so let's say I wanted to change the amount. You can change the amount right here if you want. Okay, you could delete it. If I decide I don't want it, it's gone. Okay, and if I delete it, then that gets rid of the amount for next year proposed. If I change the amount, it will update the next year proposed amount on the actual account under core. You can also create. So if you have an account you want to add in here, you can type in 2027. You can, start filtering for it this way, or there is a magnifying glass option if you want to look for an account that way. And then put in the amount and click save, and it will add it into the grid. Okay, so you could do that if you want, but it's usually best to have everything in your spreadsheet in the scenario the way you want, and then just promote it and do it that way. That way it's saved in the scenario. Okay, but you can do it this way. If it's like, oh, I just need to add this one thing, or I need to change this one amount, no big deal. Okay, that's fine if you want to do that. Okay. And I know somebody asked me last year, okay, if I make those changes in here, is that going to affect my scenario? No, it does not. Okay, it's only one way. So anything in your scenario pushes into here. If you make any changes in here, it does not affect your original scenario. Okay, and that's why I said you might want to actually make those changes in the scenario and then just re-promote it. Okay, but again, your choice. You don't have to. As long as you get the correct figures applied, it really doesn't matter. Okay, so I hope all that made sense and makes it a little clearer on how all that works. Like I said, it can get really confusing. But hopefully this made sense and you understand how it works. Okay, let me see. Okay, so once everything in the proposed amounts grid is correct, so once you're sure everything in here for budgets and for revenue for 2027 is correct, then you're ready to actually apply it to the initial figures for 2027. Okay. And remember, when I apply it, it's going to actually also create July for me under posting periods. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So when you're ready to apply, you come into proposed amounts area, make sure you select the fiscal year, and then you'll notice there is an apply button. When you apply, you're applying everything for 2027, budget and revenue all at the same time. So you don't have to do this twice. You don't have to do it once here and then go here and do the same thing. Okay? You only do it in one of these areas. It doesn't matter which one, which tab you're on. As soon as you select 2027 and apply, it's going to do both of them at the same time. Okay? Typically, you just come here and you're just on budgets, so you do it there. Okay? So let's go ahead and do it. So 2027, I'm going to apply. Okay? Then you're going to get this box. Okay? So always be careful when you get this box to make sure you're selecting what you really want. Okay? Your options for transaction type are temporary, permanent, or adjustment. Okay? You either want, since you're doing next year proposed, you either want temporary or permanent. Typically, everybody's doing temporary at this point. Okay? But again, whichever one you want to select. Okay, so I'm going to go with temporary. It is going to automatically have the update gap original estimate amounts marked. Okay. If you don't want those amounts updated, you can unmark it. Okay, I'm going to leave it marked. The effective date will automatically be set to July 1 of 26. Okay, so you can't change that. And then you'll notice there's this full year. Okay, it's automatically marked. You can unmark it if you want. Um, it's just a little flag that's set. I don't know that it really does anything, but basically you're saying to the system, I'm creating these temporary figures for 2027, and they're in effect for the full year, full fiscal year. Okay. And I'll show you where that shows up. It really doesn't affect anything on your actual accounts that I'm aware of. Okay. So once you have everything updated here the way you want, go ahead and click apply. And again, this could take a really long time, okay, because it's going to take all of the data in the grids, budget and revenue, and get everything applied to the initial figure for FY27. Okay. So even in my, small files that I'm doing for this example, you can see it's taking a while. Yours might be spinning for a really long time. So again, go and work in another tab, come back and check on it periodically, and eventually you should see this message. Okay, so it tells me it's applied everything successfully. Okay, now that I've applied it though, if I go to core posting periods, okay, you will now see that it automatically created July for me. Okay, it is open. Okay, um, dealer's choice for your district, you can leave it open. It's not going to hurt anything. Um, Nobody can post to it unless they actually enter a July 2027 date. So it's not likely until you get to that uh, month that somebody's going to start posting to it. If you want to close it, and open it later, you can do that here. But we do recommend you turn off report bundles before you do that, just to make sure it doesn't start generating reports that go into the file archive. To do that, if you're not familiar with it, if you have group manager access, you should be able to do this, and that's to go to report bundles. Okay, and then you can see all of the reports that are out there. So the SSDT ones are the main ones, but you might have some other custom bundles you've created as well. You can see which ones are marked. The ones that are marked are active. This one at the bottom is not. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you have any that you're not using, maybe you want to delete it. maybe it's not needed anymore. Or if you want to keep it there, make sure you keep it, not enabled, for whatever reason. But what you can do is just click the box here in the upper left to select them all. Maybe not include this one, doesn't really matter. But you can click disable. That will unmark all of them. Then you can go back to core posting period, close July, come back here, select them all, and re-enable them. Okay. And again, if there was one that wasn't enabled, might want to unmark it again, or, do that and then enable again. Okay. Hope that made sense. Okay. Again, up to you. It doesn't hurt anything to leave it open, but if you're like, no, I just want to make sure nobody posts to that, that's fine. You can close it. I would turn off report bundles. Okay. What else? Okay. So again, that applies the amounts to be your initial figures. Okay. But I'm in FY26. How do I know? How can I confirm they're there, right? So there's a couple of ways you can do that. The first way is to run a report. So there is a custom report, which I will show you where that's located. So it's in the SSDT Shared Reports library. Okay, so if you don't already have this report, so let me go to Report Manager first, because we already have this loaded. Okay, so if I go to Report Manager, and I'm going to do a filter using percent, and I'm going to use the word initial. Okay, so it's these reports: budget transactions, initial estimates, and revenue transactions, and initial estimate. Okay, so if you look for that, if they're already there, great. If they're not, then the way you can get them is to go to your help option in the upper right corner, and you can go right to the public reports library from here. It will open up in a new tab. Ooh, well, no, oh, yeah, didn't yet. It takes you here. Then when you click it, it opens in a new tab. There we go. Okay, so now I have a new tab. There's my demo account over here. Okay, so when that loads, you're going to see a lot of different options in here, a lot of different reports. Oops, well, it didn't work for me. Okay, that's lovely. I'll get to it over here. I think that's something with my browser. Sorry about that. Okay, or what I can do is I'm already on the SSTT documentation here. I can type in public. I can go to USAS Reports Library. This is where that link should take you. All right. And then you can actually click on right down here. If you can see, I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. I can go right to the budgeting report section, maybe. Yeah, it didn't work. Okay, it should take you to that section. It didn't work for me for some reason. So I'm going to scroll down. Sorry about the scrolling. Okay, so here's the budgeting report section. And a little bit further down, here's the budget initial estimate, revenue initial estimate. Again, all you have to do is click on the name. It will download. So click on each one to download. And then in your USAS application, go to your report manager and do that import option again right here. Okay. So then you can import, look for those files you downloaded, and then just save them in there. Okay. So let me run initial. And actually, before I get to that, thank you, Michelle, for putting that information in chat. So in chat, let's see, let's check both of these. Advanced query. Okay, Michelle gave me 2 links in chat. I'm just going to check these out. Okay, so this talks about customizing. Well, this talks more about the grid itself, but yeah, down here. Okay, that's how some, well, that's like if you're doing in the grid, but I think there's one for, sorry for the scrolling, everybody. Advanced query. Okay, the advanced query section sometimes will show, yeah, so like here's something similar. Let me click that so you can see it a little better. Okay, so here's a screenshot. Now this is an advanced query on a grid, but it's kind of similar to what I showed you in the scenario when you're building an internal worksheet. So, you select your field from the left, it goes over here to the right, you can put in an operation. Okay, so same idea. So if you go to that section and scroll down, okay, it tells you the different qualifiers. Let's see. But that doesn't give you very good examples, though. So let's click the other one that she gave us. This one might be better to look at. Oh, no, I think that took me to the same place. Now, there's somewhere else, there's a little better examples. It gives you actual examples of how to use. Yeah, I'll have to find that. Sorry, everybody. Yeah, so if you want that information, again, contact us and we'll get that to you. Or maybe at the end, I'll see if I can find it. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Michelle. That wasn't quite it. There's another example somewhere. I can't remember where it's at. It gives better examples of how to use those. This does give the list down here at the bottom. These are the qualifiers, but somewhere else in the documentation they give specific examples of how to use those. I just always forget where it's at. I have to search for that. Okay, we'll come back to that later. Thanks, Michelle, but yeah, it's hard to it can be a little hard to find. It might be under custom report creator is where I'm thinking maybe. And again, it might be USPS even. I'm not even sure. I can't remember if they had the exact same thing in both documentation or not. Okay. Okay, sorry about getting sidetracked there. Okay, so I'm going to run those reports so you can see what it looks like. So I'll just do the budget one. Oops, click the right spot there. Okay, that was not what I wanted. Sorry, I hit the wrong button apparently. All right, there we go. Okay, boy, I am really running slow today. Sorry this is taking so long, everybody. I hope to be done by now. Okay, so I'm sorry, budget transaction initial estimate. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Again, I'm just going to run it PDF, but you might want to use the Excel data version. Uh, Query option, you will want to put in the date. So you can just use 7/1/26 to 7/1/26. Because remember, when you applied it, it used the date of July 1, 26. So you could just use that range. You can use the full fiscal year if you want, but 7/1 to 7/1 is all you really need. And when you generate it, and this doesn't take long in my files, okay? When you view it, this is what you're going to see. So you're going to see the account codes. You'll see the amount that you budgeted. Because I did apply the gap initial figure, you're going to see two lines for each account, one for the temporary initial budget amount, one for the gap initial. Okay. You will also see the full year flag. So if you left that full year marked, it shows that marked on that column. Um, okay, so this is how you can tell they were added in. And then again, if I want to look for that one, if I do Control F to find, I can do 001, 28, 24, 439, just to look at that one transportation one we looked at. And of course, it's not going to work. I don't know why. I don't know what I did wrong there. Maybe I have to open it in Adobe maybe to find it. Okay. But, when you open it, you could do a find for specific accounts if you want. Oh, there we go. Yep. Okay. I think it's because I accidentally clicked on stuff. Okay, so here's that account for the $102. So you can see that that was in there. Okay, so that's one way you can verify what is actually posted to your initial figures for FY27. So you can do the same thing for revenue. The other way you can check it is you can go to core posting period. And then for since July is now created, you can actually make it current. It's not going to hurt anything to do that. So I can just make it current. Okay. The only thing about doing that is if somebody's working in there, they'll see this and be like, "What? Why does it say that date?" Okay, but otherwise it doesn't hurt anything at all. You can go to specific accounts and look them up. So let's just do that first. So let's go to accounts, expenditure. Let's do that one transportation one. Okay, 001, 28, 24, 439. Okay, and view it. Okay, and right there, there's my initial budget of 102. There's my gap amount as well. Okay, now this did have a carryover encumbrance, so my expendable's 202 on that one. Okay, so it's there. So once you're in July, this just confirms they will be there. Okay. Um, all right. So those are the two ways you can do it to verify. So I'm going to switch my posting period back to February. Make sure that one's current. Okay. Any questions about any of that? Okay, I think Michelle might have found the right link. Let's take a look. Custom report creator. Yeah, it's in there somewhere. Like I said, I'm sorry, it is a little hard to find. I should have had that. Oh, there we go. There's, I think it was taking a minute for stuff to load on mine. Okay, here we go. Configure filters. So custom report creator, configure filters. So again, here's examples here. Now these examples are, if you're customizing a report and you want it to uh, prompt you in the options page what you want to select. But further below, okay, yeah, here. So it shows some better examples. Um, yeah, of how you can enter things. So like if you're using one of, again, this is kind of small. Let me click it. Nope, it's not going to let me click it. Let me make it bigger this way. Okay. Um, well, I can't scroll over. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. Okay. It is in there, but they'll give you specific examples. So like one of, if you use the one of operation, you would put in the values separated by commas, no spaces. Contains, you can put like a word that contains a value. This example is school. Between, you put a value, comma, and then the next value, and that would be like the range. So this gives you the specific examples. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Michelle. All right. Any questions about promoting for next year proposed? And again, you can do it before you close the year. You can wait till you're actually in July. You would just promote it then. Okay, so there wouldn't be anything, or apply it then. I'm sorry. So if you're going to wait till the new year, right, you can um, you can go ahead and promote it whenever you want, but you can wait to apply it in July if you'd rather do that. Okay, dealer's choice. Doesn't matter. Either way, it will work. Once you click apply, it does it. Okay, any questions about any of that? Okay, I'm sorry this took so long this year. Apparently, I was talking a lot more than I realized. For those of you that want to stick around, I am going to go over budget adjustments still because that was another part of this. So I'm just going to show you how to manually do budget adjustments versus if you have a bunch of them, how you can do them in the scenario. So it won't take that long, but like I said, we've been going longer than I anticipated. So if you're not going to stick around, thank you for coming. If you have any questions, let us know. For everybody else, I'm going to go through the adjustments, hopefully pretty quickly. All right. So if you want to so if you only have a couple of adjustments, maybe a handful of adjustments that you're going to do, you can just do those manually. So again, this is for the current year. So if I want to do some adjustments, I'm adjusting my expendable amounts for a couple of accounts. You can just go to core accounts, go to expenditure. Okay. And so I'm going to move money from one account to another. Okay. So I'm going to start with account code 001 1110 520. And I think I need to put in the OPU. I'm waiting for it to load. It's unusually slow. There we go. Okay. That's the one I want. 101 OPU 16 instructional level. Okay. If I view the account, okay, you can see my current expendable is 1,458. I am going to move, or I'm going to actually put $400 more in here for my expendable, and I'm going to reduce another account for that $400. So I'm just going to shift the money from one account to another. So on this one, I'm going to increase it $400. Okay, so if you want to just do it manually, you just view the account, click on this budgeting adjustments button at the top, and you're just going to click create. Now, when you click create, it automatically selects transaction type of initial. You want to change that to be adjustment. And then you want to make sure you put in a date in an open posting period. Okay, so as soon as I clicked adjustment, it changed it to today's date. That's fine. I'll go ahead and use that. And then you put in the amount that you're going to adjust it. So I'm going to increase it $400. And then if you want to put something in the description, you can. And then you're just going to click post. And as soon as I post it, okay, I will see that adjustment added in here. And when I close this box and look at my expendable, you can see it put that adjustment of $400 in, and now my expendable amount is 1858. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the account where I'm going to decrease $400. So on that one, I'm going to use object 551. Okay, this one. So I'm just going to view it. Click OK, and you'll see the expendable here is 4004.98. I'm going to decrease it $400. So I'm going to click budgeting adjustment, create, click adjustment for the type. The date looks good. Okay, I'm going to do minus 400. Okay, and again, you can put a description if you want. Click post, close that. Okay, and now you'll see that negative 400 adjustment, and my expendable decreased to 3,604.98. Okay, so if you don't have many, you can just do it that way. If you have a bunch of them, you can use the budgeting area. You can use the scenarios to do that. Okay, so let's go to, okay, and there is a checklist for this. So if I go to budgeting, and actually when I did the search here, I can see budget adjustments for current fiscal year. So these are, again, step by step for if you want to do it this way. So I highly recommend referencing the document. Okay. And that way you can kind of review and see how to do that. I do want to point out this note right here. Okay. Now, keep in mind if you're going to do budget adjustments in the budgeting area using scenarios, when you're entering that amount, you're entering the amount you want the expendable to be. Okay, so remember, when you're using budgeting for next year proposed, you're entering the value you want as your initial budget. So same thing with budget adjustments. You're putting in the expendable amount you want. So that example I just did for the $400 that I was adjusting, I would have had to put in what I wanted the expendable to be. So for that first one, if I were going to do it through the scenario, I would have had to actually put 1,858, which is 400 more than what it currently is. And then for the other count, I would have to actually, type in 3,604.98, which is 400 less than what the current expendable is. Okay, so keep that in mind because you don't want to do just the amount you're adjusting. You want to tell it, I want the expendable to be this amount. Okay, and keep in mind here for their example here, if if you want the expendable to be 0, then in your spreadsheet, you're going to enter in a $0 amount. Okay, so it's really important you don't have any accounts in these worksheets with 0 values that you aren't actually updating the expendable to be 0. Okay, but the system will calculate the actual adjustment for you based on what you put in. Okay. I see a question. When making budget adjustment, did you tell it initial gap amount? I did not, but that is a good question. Keep in mind that if you want to update the initial gap amount, you would want to do that adjustment as well. So I'm still in the expenditure grid. So if I go back and view it, so when I did that budgeting adjustment, I did just the adjustment um, on the expendable. Okay. Now, this example, I don't have anything in the initial budget, but if you do want to update the gap original budget amount, you would have to do another transaction for that, I believe. Create. Yeah, so you could do a gap adjustment. So this one I did negative 400, I think. So you could put that in and post it, and then it should update that field. Okay. So here, yeah, gap original budget is now whatever you put in for that adjustment. Okay, good question. Yeah, if you need to update that, you will have to do a second adjustment for that. Okay, if you're doing it manually. Okay. Um, okay. So for my example, for using scenarios, okay, I'm going to go to a scenario. I'm going to create a new one for FY26 adjustments. Okay. Again, make sure the fiscal year is 2026. Okay. I'm going to create an internal worksheet. So I'm just going to click create, but of course you can upload an external spreadsheet. And to save time, I would probably change some of these fields down here. I'm going to skip that for now. I'm just going to go ahead and get to configure filters. Okay, again, I'm going to do active. Did I do active? I don't know if I did. Oh, okay. I'm going to do it this way. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to do it the way I have it written here so I don't get it messed up, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to do fund, and I'm going to use the one of qualifier because I want my student activity funds 200, 300. Okay. I'm also going to look for fiscal year to date expendable, which is right down here. And I want that to be greater than 0. Okay, again, this is just an example. One of the other fields that is in here that you might want to utilize, depending on what it is you want to pull in, let's see if I can find it. There's one called all amounts 0. And of course, now that I'm looking for it, I can't find it. All amounts 0. I thought it
Carol,
was
I
at the
saw it
bottom.
at the very top.
Oh, is it at the top? I was thinking it was at the bottom. Okay, no wonder why I can't find it. Thank you. Okay, at the top is all amounts 0. Okay. So that's the question sometimes you see in some reports you generate. Do you want to include counts that have all zeros for all of the amounts? So I'm going to say equals false. It's like, no, I don't want ones that have all zeros. Okay. I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it student activities budget adjustments. Okay. And I'm going to click save. I'm going to create. Okay. Now I have the spreadsheet. I'm going to save because remember, I don't want to lose everything I've done. Ooh, duplicate key. Oh, maybe I had created one already. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. Sorry. Okay. Uh, let's call it budget. I must have already had one in there named that. Oh, no. Okay. I'm not sure what happened there. I don't think I've ever gotten that message before. That's very interesting. Okay. Well, I might have to cheat and do something different here. That's very interesting. I wonder if it'll let me download this. Nope. Couldn't get that lucky. Okay. Did anybody notice if I did something wrong in there? I don't think I did. when I created it. Interesting. Okay, let me close. All right. Never fails. Okay, so let me go over here. Okay, so see, I did have one here. It must have to do with this. I apparently already had one. I thought I got rid of that. Okay, so let's edit. Okay, I don't have anything in there though. Yeah, so I'm not sure if that was already there or if it created and it was just giving an error because of the spreadsheet I was trying to create. Okay, so sorry. So let's do this again. I'm just going to do the code, sorry, the fund. Okay, let's give this one more try. Oops, 200, 300, sorry. And, okay, I do want fiscal year to date expendable. Let's at least do these two. Greater than 0. Okay, let's just do that. Let's call it, come on. Oh, I can't even spell. There we go. Let's try this. It might take a little longer to run, maybe. Okay, let's see if it'll let me save it this time. Okay, it did. Go figure, right? Okay, so let me download it. I'm going to just download the spreadsheet and then open that up in Excel. It's probably going to give me a ton of accounts I don't want. Okay, so just as an example, let's see. Let me look at, so here's my PA-2027, okay? But that's the wrong year because remember, I'm doing adjustments for 2026. Okay, so if you're using the internal spreadsheet or an external, make sure it's PA-2026. Okay, so right off the bat, you want to fix that. Okay, and just to keep this simple, make it go quicker. Okay, again, remember, you only want the accounts where you're going to change the expendable amount. Okay, so like these two, this is the current expendable amount. So let's say I'm going to change this one to 100, and this one, I'm going to make it 500. So I'm going to increase one, decrease the other. Okay, this is on autosave, so I'm just going to close it. Okay, and that's my old transportation worksheet from earlier that I didn't close. Okay, so I'm going to edit this scenario. I'm going to upload and replace, okay, with that file that I just updated in Excel. That would be this one, I believe. Upload. Okay, and then I'm just going to edit it just to make sure it's just those two accounts. Make sure it's PA 2026, 100 and 500. Perfect. Remember to save again. Okay. So once you have that updated for all of your adjustments, go ahead and promote it. Again, you're going to get that message. So anything that was FY 2026 in the proposed amounts grid, those are going to disappear and be replaced with just these two accounts for that year. I'm going to go ahead and promote it. Okay. I'm going to go over to the proposed amounts grid. I'm going to select FY 2026, and there's those two accounts, and those are the amounts that I want the expendable to be. Okay, I don't have any revenue, so if I go to the revenue tab, and if I look for 2026, it's not going to be there. Okay, because there's no revenue accounts in there for that year. Okay, so once you select the year in proposed amounts, click apply. Okay, and then you'll get this box. Make sure you change this to adjustment. Okay, you're doing an adjustment for the current year. You have the option to update the GAAP original estimate amount if you want. If you do, go ahead and mark that. I'll go ahead and leave it. put in the effective date. It does have to be an open period, so I'm just going to use today's date. Okay, and then that full year flag is marked. Again, I don't think it has any effect. Doesn't look like I can take it out though. So that'll just be there. Okay, so I'm just going to click apply. Okay, and then I'm going to go to core accounts and we'll look at both of those accounts. Let me bring up the spreadsheet because I did not write them down. Okay, let me move that to my other screen. Oh, where I can't hardly see it. That's wonderful. Okay. Sometimes it just doesn't work. This is a day where I need a third monitor, I think. Okay, bear with me while I write this down here. 4, 6. Well, I can just flip back and forth. Let's do that. Let's do it that way to save a little time. Let's see. Go back here. Here we go. So on the expenditure account, okay. Okay, yeah, 246.70, 510, 9117 was one of them, I believe. Okay, yeah, 9117. We made it $100, so let's view that. Okay, so I had GAAP original budget marked, so there's my 100 for GAAP original budget. It automatically calculated the adjustment, but now you can see my expendable is actually $100. Okay, and then the other one was a 9123. This one I decreased. There it is. Okay, so again, I had marked GAAP original budget, so it put 500 there. It did an adjustment, and now my expendable is the $500 that I had in the spreadsheet. Okay, that's it. So that's how you can do it through scenarios if you have a bunch of them. Just remember you're entering the actual expendable amount, which you want it to be. Okay, it works a little different than doing the manual adjustments. Does anybody have any questions at all on anything we've covered today? If not, I really appreciate you hanging in there with me as this took quite a bit longer than I thought it would. I know I went over a little bit last year. It's like I went over quite a bit more this year, but hopefully this information helps you out. Again, if you have any questions at all, contact our team at redesignhelp@metasolutions.net, or feel free to call or email us directly. Doesn't really matter. We'd be glad to help you out. Everybody have a wonderful day. And happy budgeting, everybody. Hope everything goes well.